Hyderabad. Mother had a new public program coming up in Hyderabad and invited me and the two other Australians to go with her. We boarded a plane at Madras Airport, which was a single-aisle aircraft. Mother sat by a window on the left side facing the front. Next to her was the former Australian leader, and across the aisle was me and then the other yogi. During the flight, Mother looked over toward me and was saying something which I couldn't quite catch. She then turned to the yogi next to her and spoke into his ear, and he then relayed to me, "Mother says you are not with her because you are special." I said, "Yes, Mother." I admit I couldn't help wanting to be special in some ways, but I always did understand that we were all her children and no one was above the other. What I now understand is that if you hear any words from Shri Mataji, they are always a message for you, regardless if you think they are being spoken to another person. So in my view, there were three yogis with her that day who all heard those words, even though they seemingly were directed to me. When we arrived in Hyderabad, we were met by some yogis and taken to one of those old style Raj hotels with staff and servants in uniforms. A big Sikh guy with a sword was at the entrance to welcome us. We were fed delicious Indian food in an atmosphere of decaying beauty and class, reminiscent of the days of the British Empire, which had fallen. The day of the program, Indira Gandhi, who was the President of India at the time, was assassinated by one of her Sikh guards, and a national curfew was called for. Our program in the evening still went ahead, and there were about 200 people there, although the streets were very empty and silent. But somehow the word had got out to the vigilantes that we were there, and a truckload of these young fanatics arrived and began beating people at the back of the hall with lathis. I was way down the front, sitting in the crowd, when I heard the disturbance. A number of things happened at once. The attendees began rising like a wave behind us and ran to avoid being beaten. And the established yogis ran back to try and calm things down. I looked back to the front, and Mother was being half dragged from the stage out of the side door. I got up and ran towards Mother. We got to a small fence outside, which we then had to help Mother climb over, and we joined her standing the other side of this fence. I was sort of riled up inside, and I felt like I was ready to fight anyone who came near Mother or threatened her in any way, which is ridiculous when you think about it now. But she read my thoughts immediately, and she said to me, "If you do that, you'll only go down to their level." And I realized how right she was immediately. Violence only begets violence. Our calling is to become higher beings, beings of peace and love. Things calmed down. The yogis eventually talked the vigilantes down, and Mother resumed her program and gave realization. It was quite an eventful evening. The following day, we had lunch in the hotel and then all adjourned to Mother's room. Mother asked me to massage her feet and asked me questions about my life before Sahaj. I told her about my youth, my drug addiction, my difficult upbringing. In those days, I saw myself as a victim, broken family, alcoholic parents, school bullying, etc. Between the questions, Mother urged me to rub her feet harder and harder. But no matter how hard I rubbed them, how hard I kneaded them with my fingers and my thumb, she asked me to do it even harder. After telling the litany of my past woes, Mother just looked at me and said simply, "It's ego." There was me expecting some consoling words, commiseration, even maybe sympathy, and that was it. All ego. That hit me hard and went in deeply. There was nothing for the brain to grab onto as an excuse. It was just ego. Over time, I saw the truth of this. It's only the ego that suffers, feels hurt, plays the victim. For the spirit, none of these things exist. That's why Mother often said about Christ, he did not suffer. He was pure spirit. Entering pure spirit, one comes to understand this. It's all an illusion, except the reality of the spirit. I was still rubbing Mother's feet so hard I began to sweat, and then I wept upon her feet, like tears of relief. She turned to the others in the room. "Look at him, he's crying," she laughed. Mother was ready for her siesta, and all of us yogis in the room lay down on the floor where we could find a space around her bed and slept. I was lying beside the bed and I fell into a deep sleep. I don't know where I was, but it was a place of just deep peace, comfort, vibrational satisfaction. And I vaguely felt someone shaking me, and waking me. Apparently, we had a train booked, and me and the other yogi had to go and get it. I was very annoyed, very angry and frustrated about this. I was trying to shake off the person, and I just couldn't get rid of them. And I had to open my eyes into the reality. We packed up quietly and left Shri Mataji still sleeping on the bed and headed out into the world.